and welcome to this very special bonus episode of Real Life Ghost Stories, where, as you can see by the title, I am interviewing the one and the only Danny Robbins. Just a couple of things before we dive into the episode. First of all, this episode was recorded using my portable mics, so the sound quality may be a little bit different to what you are used to, but it is absolutely perfect to listen to. The second thing is that this episode was literally, and I mean literally, recorded half an hour before Danny had to go on stage at his Canterbury show for Uncanny. So it's not a particularly long interview, but as he was in my hometown, I was really keen to try and get some time to have an interview and actually meet him in person. If you don't know who Danny Robbins is, he is the man behind the podcast series The Battersea Poltergeist, the series The Witch Farm, the Uncanny podcast series, and the Uncanny TV show. There's also a book out, an Uncanny book, and the play 222. So he has been doing a lot of stuff, particularly in the last year. And if you have not checked out any of his stuff, I would highly recommend it. It is brilliant. And I will say, I went to see the live show last night after the interview. I didn't know what to expect. I've never been to a podcast live show before, so I didn't really know what to expect or what would happen, but it was so good. It was brilliant. If you are a fan of Uncanny, the podcast, or the TV show, or anything else, I genuinely would highly recommend going to this show. It was so well done. It's essentially a 2-hour show with an interval. It presents cases just like the podcast, but they're new cases and they're done so well. I was super impressed. Could not recommend it more. Do go and see it. If you were on the fence about going to see it, this is your sign to go and see it. So the Uncanny live show is still on tour for the rest of this month, I think. I will leave the links to where you can find out all the information that you need in the description of this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome back to this very special episode of Real Life Ghost Stories, where I am sitting backstage in the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury with the amazing Danny Robbins. Hello, Danny.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right.
It feels really weird to see you in person in real life. I'm a bit like, oh, you do exist.
I exist. I'm not just a voice. No, I know. It's good. You're catching me in the midst of the Uncanny live tour, wandering all around the country. So
I know. I feel sorry for you.
No, it's fun. It's been lovely. I mean, a lot of train journeys, a lot of sandwiches from supermarkets and petrol stations. But yeah, it's been lovely actually. And I mean, you'll know from your podcast that, you know, it's a conversation and you're talking to people all the time. The nature of a podcast is that you hopefully build a community around it and those people chat to you, you chat to them, and it's an exchange of ideas. And so to do that in person is brilliant, you know, and to see people that you've been talking to on Twitter or, you know, people you know are regular listeners, for them to come up after the show and have a chat. It's just brilliant.
It sounds amazing. It looks like the tour is going really well. So before I came out tonight, I had a look on the Real Life Ghost Stories group on Facebook, and loads of people were like, I went to see it last week, I'm going to see it tonight. So people are really loving it and really excited about it.
It's good. I hope so. I mean, I think it's a nice time. We've been doing the podcast for a while. We've just done a TV series of Uncanny on BBC Two, and I've got my book out as well.
I know, it's all happening.
So it's been a kind of mad, uncanny autumn. I don't know if I ever planned it that way, but it's somehow they've all come together.
That was my second question, but I'm going to ask you now, as soon as we've come on to it. The last time I spoke to you, you had just done Uncanny Season 1, I think, and The Battersea Poltergeist. Since then, it's just exploded. Like, genuinely in your wildest dreams, back in the haunted days, did you feel like any of this was a possibility?
Not at all. I mean, and Haunted was it feels like a long time ago now. Haunted was a kind of personal tragedy for me in a way that I mean, that sounds a bit overblown, I guess, but I made this show I loved, and then I wasn't able to make any more of it. And it was because I signed this deal with this American company, this American kind of podcast company that we made it with, and they basically controlled the rights to my idea, you know. So I made this thing, loved it, wanted to make more. You know, there was this nice response to it, but they went bust basically, and so then we couldn't make any more unless we paid them huge amounts of money. So it was really sad for me that we couldn't do more of Haunted, and I kind of felt really kind of devastated about it for quite a while afterwards. And it wasn't until making Battersea Poltergeist that I kind of got my mojo back and was able to make more shows. And so I look back now, and Haunted feels like a kind of prototype for what we're doing now for Uncanny. And Yeah, so I had no idea it would happen like this. And Haunted basically came out of me doing research for my play 222, A Ghost Story. I started asking on social media if anybody I knew had had an experience, and started getting a few stories, and it kind of spread. It was like friends and friends of friends and then strangers. And I just realised that there were these amazing stories out there, and that I wanted to kind of do something with them and try and make sense of them. And Haunted was an attempt to do that, and it's grown. And now, obviously, it kind of exponentially it's grown in that we get a lot more stories coming in because of the podcast, and then the TV series even more. So it's it's clear to me, and I'm sure to you as well, that all the stats about how many people believe in ghosts and how many people have seen a ghost or had an experience are pretty wrong, and that actually it's way more widespread than we think. And I think there's just loads of people out there who haven't known how or where to talk about this, and are keen to discuss their experiences and make sense of them, really.
And there really is the appetite for it. Clearly, there's the appetite for it, because it's just so popular. Like even 222 has gone global. You know what I mean? And there is the appetite for ghost stories.
I think we live in a moment where there's a hunger for ghost stories, and I think that you could read all sorts of things into that. I think definitely periods of unsettling times in society seem to breed an interest in that. You can look back to like the 1960s, the boom of horror, the interest in the supernatural then. Obviously, post First World War, post Second World War, there's definitely the paranormal feels like it's a response. The interest in it is a response to uncertainty, chaos, proximity to death. We've got that in the sort of way we're exposed to COVID and climate change and war at the moment. We're definitely thinking about death more than we were. And I think, I think basically when our world is troubled, we go in search of another world, I think. And that's what ghosts and UFOs offer us.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a question for you. This is a me question. This doesn't come from listeners. Do you have a pre-show routine? Do you get nervous before a show? And do you have a routine that doesn't involve me? Because I'm not coming around on tour with you to do this every time.
I do have a routine. I shadow box.
I did not expect you to say that.
You would not think that of me, my little pasty-faced, sort of weak-limbed form that I've got. But I shadow box backstage to get myself in the zone. There you go. That's a revelation.
Because I saw that Evelyn tweeted yesterday saying that she does a monologue in her dressing room backstage to warm up, and you're here shadow boxing.
I just shadow box, and I sort of. Yeah, that's about it, really. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That brings me such joy. So questions from listeners. And I said this was going to be light and easy breezy, and then I'd come flying in with this question. Do you ever regret immersing yourself in the paranormal?
No, I don't. I mean, it's something that I've been intrigued by, kind of obsessively intrigued by my whole life, really. And I would say the study of it brings me joy in many ways. I love the interactions I have with people. I think, I am fascinated by people. I have always enjoyed making documentaries. I think that a lot of paranormal shows get very obsessed by places.
Yes.
By going to a castle or a haunted pub, that kind of thing. Very obsessed with kind of just bricks and mortar and, the kind of history of a place. I'm intrigued by the person, and I love these moments of trying to make sense of a mystery in someone's life, a moment in their life where they've experienced something that has been seismic for them and often life-changing for them, and trying to make sense of that intrigues me. And for me, it's very personal as well. There are reasons why I want to make sense of this, and for me, more than anything else, I think it is a fear of death and a kind of the idea of ghosts as an antidote to death, and that optimism of there possibly being something after death. So I think I think it's not a sort of academic or kind of abstract study for me. I kind of, I crave answers on this,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's. I definitely feel like making the shows I make at the moment. I feel a huge sense of relief and release. I feel like I spent a lot of my life making things for other people. Kind of things that I felt would work well on Radio 4 or BBC One, whatever, trying to impress a commissioner or tick a box, those kind of things. And actually, Battersea Poltergeist was the first time I just made something where I was like, this is for me. I just want to make something that is what I would want to listen to. And if nobody wants to listen to it, then fair enough, I'll walk away and go back into my hole and hide. But
that didn't happen.
Yeah,
And
thankfully
clearly,
people did, and I think
Yeah.
people respond to the personal, don't they? I think if you care about the subject and you're delivering something that you are interested in an interesting way, then hopefully people will respond. And if I was giving one tip to anybody thinking of making a podcast or a TV show or whatever you want to do, it would be just make something that you really care about. Just make something that you kind of live and breathe for and that excites you when you get up in the morning, because it's much easier for you than making something that you're just kind of not that interested in and you're kind of soldiering through. But also that will just radiate out of the microphone or out of the the screen. People get that. People respond to enthusiasm and excitement, and this subject excites me.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way, like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it? So, those conversations that you need to have with people that might be a little bit difficult, but they're very necessary, and you just can't find the courage to do it. It might even be as simple as trying to fall asleep at night and your racing thoughts are keeping you awake. You just can't turn that brain off. Or it might be like the paralyzing fear of trying to make a big decision. The reality is that sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, and therapy helps you to figure out what it is that is holding you back. I've had moments where I've talked to my therapist about situations that have been going on with my family, situations that have been going on with my friends, and I cannot tell you how helpful it is to have somebody to talk through those situations with, no matter how big or small. And ultimately, I found that often talking through these particular situations can give me the clarity that I need to make a decision about what it is I need to do. And listen, if you're thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and to suit your schedule. You get matched with a therapist based on a brief questionnaire. And guess what? If you don't click with that person, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Visit betterhelp.com/reallifeghoststories today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/reallifeghoststories. I think this was the question that probably was asked the most. Because people want to know black or white, they want a hardline answer. So you've described yourself in interviews as a skeptic who wants to believe. And has that changed? Now, I did have one particular question that said, how could it not have changed after episode 1 of the TV show? That was definitely a ghost. It was nothing else. No, so has it changed?
It's really interesting. I mean, I have changed definitely over the time that I've been making these shows. I think I suspect you can hear that actually. If you listen to Haunted, I think you probably hear a more skeptic me. I think that line, want to believe, a skeptic who wants to believe. I mean that is so true. I desperately want to believe, and I've loved the idea of belief since I was a kid, really. And I was brought up an atheist, but kind of wanted to believe. I always wondered if I was being left out of some club, missing out on some magic somewhere. And it's a hard one. I guess the closest I come to this is to say I cannot explain the stories that I am told, and that troubles me, and that makes me feel uneasy, but it also excites me. And I think that we are hugely evidence-based as human beings. We make judgments on our own experiences. I think I have not had an experience that I would deem to be paranormal, and so I can't categorically say that the paranormal exists. And and as a terrible coward, I do wonder if I could cope with a paranormal experience. I mean, some of the experiences that people describe to me, I don't know. I think I'd be so scared. I'm not sure how I would deal with them. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a journey for me. I see myself being on a journey. I see it as a journey that I'm going on with a lot of other people, all the people who listen. And I sort of feel like, I'm really interested in seeing certain people on social media, talking about possibly changing their beliefs.
Yes.
It's intriguing to me to see people saying, and I don't just mean going from skepticism to belief. I mean, some people have gone from belief to skepticism. And I think, that's equally interesting. I think the journeys people go on, and I think the idea that you can be several things, maybe in the course of one episode you might flit between skepticism and belief. I love that, and I think it's such an underrated thing in today's society, that ability to change your mind.
Yes, and
You
that
know,
it's okay.
Yeah, we're constantly told, you've got to make your decision. What are you? And what do you stand for? What do you believe in? Like you've got to be anti something and for something else. And actually, sometimes you're just in the middle and you go, I don't know what I think.
Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the uncanny verse, as it were, is that there is hardline skeptics, hardline believers, and everybody just gets along.
Yeah, there are absolute hardcore skeptics who tweet me every single week going, this is rubbish.
This
and yet
is
they're
the reason
listening
why.
every week and they love
they're
it.
Listening. That's exactly it.
And I, for everybody who tells me that, the believer experts we have on the show are complete idiots, there's an equal amount of people saying the skeptics are complete idiots. And actually, and actually that makes it sound more kind of confrontational or aggressive than it is. Everything, the kind of discourse around the show I see is always really good-natured and really, kind of fun. And I think we quite enjoy being annoyed by things. We quite enjoy hearing other people's opinions. And actually, it makes you think. Every time you might listen to that skeptic and not agree with them, or listen to the believer expert and not agree with them, but actually it will have made you think about it more. And I think if we can be within an era of the paranormal where we're really asking, searching questions and exploring stuff and not just taking things for granted, whichever side you're on, not just instantly debunking as a skeptic or not just instantly believing as a believer. I think that idea of creating this debate around it is exciting to me.
Okay, easy question.
Okay, go on.
Music-wise, what band, musician or songwriter are you listening to at the moment?
This will sound a bit tragic. My favourite band is called Ghost.
Oh!
They're
interesting.
A Swedish metal band.
Yes, I know who Ghost are, yeah.
So I'm a huge fan. I've seen them a couple of times, and I actually come on to a Ghost song on the show. This live tour, I play a Ghost song at the beginning.
Oh, I can't believe you get to have a walkout song. I
do.
think of that.
It's called If You Have Ghosts.
I can't wait to see this.
So so I'm very on brand with my my Ghost stuff. But I guess also my wife is Swedish, so having a Swedish band as your favourite band feels quite loyal to that as well.
Brownie points. Yeah. That's what that is. I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions and then I'll let you go because I know that you have to get on stage and actually do a show.
Talk to the people of Canterbury.
So I'll ask you two more questions. First question, which is what everybody has been asking me to ask you. Are you going to be able to bring the TV show to the US or anywhere outside the UK?
Well, I hope so. I think there are probably people at the BBC trying to do that at the moment and sort of talking about sort of international sales of it and all that sort of thing. So I hope so. I would imagine that's what they'll want to do. Yeah.
That sounds very promising.
So I mean that's sort of above my pay grade basically. But I mean I've seen a lot of people in America and Australia and so on asking about it. But I would love to think it'll be on next year.
And similarly, is there any chance of a US tour of Uncanny?
Oh my God, that would be great. I'd love that.
Somebody else organise it, please.
I'll be honest, I'm totally living my rockstar dreams here. Like, coming out, clouds of dry ice and all that sort of thing. I was a kid who, as well as growing up loving ghosts, I was also a kid who grew up wanting to be a rock star.
And here you are.
So there you go.
Mix of both worlds.
I don't know. I mean, it would be lovely. I mean, lots of people have said, come to Australia or come to America. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to know how many people out there, in those countries would like us to come and
how
perform.
much it would translate into tickets.
Yeah.
That's the harsh reality.
I think let's see. I don't know. It'd be nice. I'd love to. I've travelled a lot in my life. I had a funny period of my life where I was doing travel journalism, and used to travel all the time, like every month. And I love travel. I love exploring other parts of the world. So the idea of exploring the ghosts of other parts of the world would really, really interest me, actually. And I think that in different parts of the world, we approach ghosts in very different ways.
Yes.
I think we've got a very sort of definite way of looking at it in the UK, and I think the way they look at it in the US is pretty similar, but then go to other cultures and it's totally different.
Totally different in Irish culture.
Yeah.
Totally different.
And the idea of sort of, being this kind of link to the ancestors of the past, and like in Mexico on Day of the Dead, I think they set places at the table for their ancestors, and there's something in a way more comforting about that. I think we've got very scary ghosts in the UK, and I would say that's perhaps because we are very scared of death, and I think that that fear breeds fearful ghosts, and I think in other parts of the world there may be a little bit more sort of, I don't know, relaxed or attuned to the idea of life and death and the shifts between the two, and their ghosts feel less threatening as a result.
And we're more linked to ghosts when you have a kind of a different relationship with death. It doesn't feel like us and them.
Yeah.
Last question.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this. Can you give us any idea about what is next for you? What's next for the Uncannyverse?
A big sleep. I think in December I'm definitely going to take some time off and chill out and see my family, because I haven't.
Who are they?
Yeah, exactly. I've just not seen them at all recently, which is not so good. I think, well, yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, like, sort of more podcast episodes imminently. I mean, they're kind of coming out now in the wake of the TV series. But then, I don't know, we've got this series we're doing called Haunted History, which is like looking at some historic kind of celebrated cases, the kind of the likes of a Borley or an Enfield, those kind of big cases, which we're going to do. And then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to do another long-form story like Battersea or Witch Farm. I'd love to explore something that felt meaty enough to sustain multi-episodes like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's been a kind of whirlwind year, and I don't know. I think I need a little moment in December just to take a moment and just kind of go, I'm pleased and proud of everything we've done this year.
I think you're allowed it.
And then what's next? And actually sit down and have a think about what I'd like to do next. And I think it might not be just telling real life stories. It might be also kind of trying to write some fictional ones, because I think I did 222 A Ghost Story. I loved writing that play, writing a supernatural drama. And I'd be really intrigued to do that, either another play or write something for the screen. I think taking all of the real stories that I've been told and the kind of, all of the kind of knowledge you get from that, and kind of using that to kind of give an authenticity to the stories that you write fictionally, I think is exciting. I think, the research I did before 222, listening to so many people telling me their stories, I think feeds in and makes that play feel very real. You feel like you're watching real people going through a real experience. And I don't know, I would love to tell a supernatural thriller on screen, I think.
Oh, well, you heard it here first. I can't wait. I'm excited. Danny, thank you. It's been a joy.
No,
I know
pleasure.
that you need to go and shadowbox and get on
exactly.
stage.
Yeah.
So break a leg. I'm excited to see it.
Enjoy
and
the
I'll
show.
speak to you again soon.